The deep space sensors on the USS Horizon picked up the unknown vessel first. It was large, nearly twice the size of Earth's premier diplomatic ship, and it moved with a grace that seemed impossible for its bulk. Captain Olivia Martinez stood on the bridge, her dark eyes fixed on the main screen as the alien ship grew larger. "Any response to our hails communications?" she asked, keeping her voice steady despite the excitement bubbling in her chest. "First contact. After 20 years of interstellar travel, humanity was about to meet its first alien civilization." "Nothing yet, Captain," replied Communications Officer Diane Wells, her fingers moving quickly over her console. "Wait, incoming transmission." The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were face to face with the aliens. The bridge crew gasped collectively. The beings had vaguely humanoid shapes, but they were massive, with thick limbs and broad chests. Their skin looked like polished bronze, and their eyes were wide and vertical like a cat's. "Greetings," the central figure said in surprisingly good English. "I am Ambassador Zrith of the Valaxian Interstellar Alliance. Our translators have processed your language from your broadcasts. I am Captain Olivia Martinez of the Earth Space Command vessel USS Horizon. On behalf of humanity, we welcome this historic meeting," Martinez replied, standing a bit straighter. As the initial exchanges continued, Lieutenant Frank Murphy, the ship's science officer, was busy analyzing the data coming in from the sensors. Something about the Valaxians' movement seemed off. They moved with a fluidity that didn't match their bulky frames, almost as if... "Captain," Murphy whispered, approaching Martinez's chair. "Preliminary scans suggest their ship maintains artificial gravity at approximately 0.7 Earth standard. I believe they evolved on a low-gravity world." Martinez nodded slightly but kept her focus on the diplomatic exchange. The Valaxians were explaining their vast alliance of worlds and their technological achievements. "We are pleased to make contact with your species," Ambassador Zrith said, but there was something in his tone that Murphy didn't like. It sounded almost condescending. "Though we admit some surprise that your kind has achieved spaceflight." "Oh? Why is that, Ambassador?" Martinez asked. "Forgive my directness, but your physical structure appears quite delicate. Your skin is so thin we can see blood vessels beneath. Your bones look fragile, yet you've managed impressive technological development despite these limitations." Murphy felt his face flush. The alien was basically calling humans weak. "Physical appearances can be deceiving, Ambassador," Martinez said smoothly. "We're quite comfortable with our evolutionary path." The conversation continued for hours, as both sides shared basic information about their civilizations. Throughout the exchange, Murphy noticed the Valaxians' subtle looks of surprise, even pity, when humans described their home world. Later, during a private briefing in the conference room, Murphy displayed his findings to the senior staff. "The Valaxians evolved on a planet with significantly lower gravity than Earth," he explained, showing a comparative chart. "Their bone density and muscle mass developed differently than ours. They're assuming our appearance means weakness because they're comparing us to their own standards." "Are they a threat?" asked Major Sophia Blackwell, the ship's military attaché. Her hand rested near her sidearm, a habit from years in the field. "They've invited a delegation to visit their homeworld, Valix Prime," Martinez said. "That's either a gesture of goodwill or they're assessing us more closely." "Probably both," said diplomat Jason Hayes, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. "Their technology appears advanced, possibly beyond ours in some areas. We should accept the invitation but remain cautious." 2 days later, Martinez led a small team aboard the Valaxian vessel. As they stepped through the airlock, they immediately felt the difference in gravity. It was like walking on Earth after spending time on the moon. Their movements became higher, lighter. The Valaxians watched with barely concealed amusement as the humans adjusted. "You may need time to acclimate to our environment," Ambassador Zrith said. "Many species find the transition challenging." "It's quite refreshing, actually," Martinez replied, deliberately taking a few normal steps to show she was fine. "Like taking off a heavy backpack." The Valaxian ship was enormous inside, with high ceilings and wide corridors. Murphy noticed That much of their technology emphasized physical interaction rather than automation. Makes sense, he thought. With lower gravity, physical labor wouldn't be as taxing. During their tour, the humans observed other alien species serving the Valaxians. Most appeared physically similar to the Valaxians, but smaller, with the same thick build. None looked remotely human. These are client species of our alliance, Zrith explained when Hayes inquired. They benefit from our protection and guidance. They look like servants, Blackwell muttered under her breath. At a formal dinner that evening, the humans sat uncomfortably in chairs designed for the Valaxians' larger frames. The food was processed to be safe for human consumption but had strange textures and bland flavors. We understand your species comes from a rather unusual world, said Goral, a Valaxian military commander seated across from Martinez. Your records indicate much higher gravity than civilized worlds typically feature. Earth has shaped us in many ways, Martinez replied diplomatically. Indeed, it explains much about your physical development. Such high gravity must be quite limiting. Murphy exchanged glances with Blackwell. The Valaxians clearly considered humans to be lesser beings, possibly even a species to be pitied or helped like their other client species. After dinner, Murphy pulled aside one of the Valaxian scientists, Frail, who seemed more open-minded than the others. I'm curious about your species' development, Murphy said casually. Our scans suggest Valax has about 70% of Earth's gravity. Correct, Frail replied. It's within the optimal range for intelligent life development. Your world is quite extreme by galactic standards. How do your people even move effectively under such crushing force? We manage, Murphy said, smiling slightly. When your delegation visits Earth, you'll see for yourselves. Visit Earth? Frail seemed surprised. I wasn't aware such a trip was planned. Surely your leaders would want to see our home just as we're seeing yours. Later that night, as the human delegation prepared for sleep in their assigned quarters, Murphy shared his concerns with Martinez. They're underestimating us, Captain. Badly. They see our physical appearance and assume weakness, Martinez nodded slowly. And if they're in the business of collecting client species, that misconception might work in our favor, Lieutenant. Let's encourage a return visit to Earth. I think our Valaxian friends might benefit from a new perspective. As Murphy drifted off to sleep in the strange too-light gravity, he couldn't help smiling. He could already imagine the Valaxians' faces when they tried to take their first steps on Earth. The human delegation arrived on Valax Prime after a 3-day journey aboard the alien vessel. As they stepped onto the landing platform, Captain Martinez noticed the welcome committee consisted of what appeared to be low-ranking officials. No high commanders, no political leaders, just minor bureaucrats sent to greet the supposedly weak humans. Welcome to our homeworld, said a Valaxian with less ornate clothing than the ship's crew had worn. I am Assistant Diplomatic Coordinator. Leth, please follow me to your accommodations. The gravity was just as Murphy had calculated, about 70% of Earth normal. The humans tried not to show their ease of movement as they followed Leth into a gleaming building of twisted metal and stone. The architecture soared upward in ways that would be structurally impossible on Earth, with thin supports holding massive overhangs. Their buildings reflect their environment, Murphy whispered to Martinez. Lower gravity means they can build with less support. Their quarters were spacious but uncomfortable. The beds were too large and too soft, the chairs built for bodies larger than human frames. Everything about the space made the humans feel small and inadequate. Martinez suspected this was not an accident. Ambassador Zrith arrived hours later to escort them to a formal meeting with mid-level Valaxian officials. The humans wore their standard exosuits, designed to protect them in alien environments and monitor vital signs. The suits also allowed manual adjustment to compensate for different gravity fields. Why do you wear such protective gear? Asked Zrith as they walked through a massive corridor lined with what appeared to be war trophies. Our atmosphere has been certified safe for your physiology. Standard protocol, Martinez replied simply. She didn't mention that the suits were currently helping them appear more affected by the low gravity than they actually were. Lieutenant Murphy had suggested they hide their true physical capabilities for now. The meeting hall held about 20 Valaxians, all looking down at the humans with barely disguised superiority. A large Valaxian with elaborate markings on his bronze skin stood and addressed them. "I am Subcommander Velth of the Expansion Division. We welcome you as representatives of your species." His tone suggested they were barely worth his time. As the diplomatic talks progressed, the humans learned more about Valaxian society. They ruled over 12 star systems with various client species serving them. The Valaxians provided protection in exchange for resources and labor. It sounded like an empire built on intimidation to Martinez's ears. Later that day, the humans were invited to observe a Valaxian athletic demonstration. In the large arena, Valaxian warriors leaped incredible distances, lifted objects that looked heavy and moved with astonishing speed. "Impressive," said Diplomat Hayes politely as a Valaxian lifted what they estimated was about 200 pounds over his head. On Earth, it would be a decent but unremarkable feat for a trained individual. Here, with lower gravity, the humans were not particularly impressed, but they applauded anyway. "Your warriors must train differently, given your physical limitations," said Subcommander Velth, watching them closely. "We adapt to our environment," Major Blackwell replied with a slight smile. After the demonstration, they were invited to a formal dinner. The food was still bland and oddly textured. Murphy noticed the Valaxians watching them eat as if studying creatures in a zoo. "Tell us about your military capabilities," Velth asked during the meal, attempting to sound casual. Martinez chose her words carefully. "Earth Space Command serves primarily as an exploratory and diplomatic force. We maintain defensive capabilities proportional to our needs." "Of course," Velth said with what looked like a smirk. "Exploration suits your kind. The harsh environments of truly valuable worlds would likely prove too demanding for your physiology." Murphy caught Blackwell's eye across the table. The Major looked ready to demonstrate exactly what human physiology was capable of. Martinez gave her a subtle headshake. "Not yet." On the third day, the humans were given a tour of a Valaxian production facility where members of a client species called the Grev worked assembling technology components. The Grev were shorter than Valaxians, but shared their thick build and bronze skin. They moved with quick, nervous gestures whenever a Valaxian supervisor came near. "The Grev are a primitive species we uplifted," explained Zrith. "They are grateful for our guidance and protection." "They look afraid," Hayes observed quietly to Martinez. During the tour, one of the Grev workers dropped a component, which shattered on the floor. The nearest Valaxian supervisor bellowed in rage and raised his hand to strike the cowering worker. Before anyone could react, Major Blackwell was between them. She had moved so quickly that even her fellow humans were surprised. "Accidents happen," she said calmly, placing herself squarely in front of the Grev worker. The Valaxian supervisor looked stunned, then angry. "This is not your concern, human." "I'm sure you wouldn't want a diplomatic incident," Martinez said, stepping forward. Major Blackwell is understandably startled by what appeared to be a physical threat. "On Earth, we handle workplace errors differently." The tension hung in the air for several long seconds before Zrith intervened. "Of course, cultural differences. Let us continue the tour." As they moved on, Murphy noticed several Valaxians speaking quietly among themselves, looking at Blackwell with new interest. Her speed had surprised them. That evening, Lieutenant Murphy was analyzing data in his quarters when there was a soft knock at his door. He opened it to find a Valaxian scientist he'd met briefly the day before. "I am Scientist Kren," the Valaxian said, glancing nervously down the corridor. "May I enter? I'm curious about your world and wish to speak privately." Murphy let him in, curious. Kren seemed genuinely interested in Earth, asking questions about human development and adaptation. Finally, he came to his real question. "Is it true your world has gravity nearly 50% stronger than ours?" "That's correct," Murphy confirmed. "And your people just function normally there? Walk around? Build things?" "We do more than function. We thrive." Kren looked troubled. "The High Command believes your kind would make suitable clients easy to control. But I've studied the theoretical effects of high-gravity environments on evolution. If what you say is true, High Command might be underestimating us." Murphy finished for him. Kren left soon after, still looking worried. Murphy immediately went to Captain Martinez's quarters to report the conversation. "So they are planning to add us to their collection," Martinez said grimly after hearing Murphy's account. "Yes, but they don't understand what they're dealing with," Murphy replied. "They think we're weak because we look different than they do." "Then perhaps it's time we invited them to experience Earth for themselves," Martinez said, a slight smile forming on her lips. "Let's see how strong they feel under real gravity." The next morning, Captain Martinez requested a meeting with Ambassador Zrith. The Valaxian agreed, still treating the humans with that same air of superiority that had begun to grate on the entire human delegation. "Ambassador, we appreciate your hospitality," Martinez began as they sat in a conference room designed to make the humans feel small. "We believe it's time to extend the same courtesy to you. We would like to formally invite a Valaxian delegation to visit Earth." Zrith's vertical pupils widened slightly. "That is unexpected. We had planned to study your species further before such an exchange." "Surely the best way to study us is to see our home," Martinez said with a carefully measured smile. "How can you truly understand humans without experiencing Earth?" The ambassador seemed to consider this. "I will bring your invitation to the High Command, though I must warn you, our protocols for visiting undeveloped worlds are quite strict." Murphy, sitting beside Martinez, had to work hard not to react to the term undeveloped. Instead, he leaned forward. "We understand completely. We have similar protocols. Safety is paramount." After Zrith left, Hayes turned to Martinez. "Are you sure this is wise, Captain? If they're planning to conquer Earth, we're basically giving them a reconnaissance opportunity." "They're already planning to conquer us," Martinez replied firmly. "They just don't know what they're up against. Better they learn now on our terms." 3 days later, the Valaxian High Command accepted the invitation. Commander Krath, a highly decorated military leader, would head the delegation. The humans learned that Krath had personally overseen the integration of 3 planetary systems into the Valaxian alliance. "They're sending their best conqueror," Blackwell observed during the private briefing in Martinez's quarters. "They're not even trying to hide their intentions anymore." "Good," Martinez said. "That means they'll bring their elite warriors too. The ones who think they're the strongest." On their final night on Valix Prime, Lieutenant Murphy encoded a message to Earth with specific instructions. He had to use the most secure channel available, routing it through 3 different relay points to ensure the Valaxians couldn't intercept it. The next morning, they boarded the USS Horizon along with Commander Krath and 5 Valaxian warriors. The Valaxian warship Dominant Fist would escort them back to Earth. As they prepared for departure, Murphy noticed the Valaxians inspecting the human ship with barely concealed disdain. "Your vessel is quaint," Commander Krath said to Martinez on the bridge. "Though I'm surprised you maintain artificial gravity at such uncomfortable levels." "This is standard Earth gravity," Martinez replied. "We find it quite comfortable." "Fascinating," Krath said, though his expression suggested he didn't believe her. "Our research suggests prolonged exposure to such conditions would be detrimental to most species." "Humans are quite adaptable," Martinez said simply. During the 3-week journey back to Earth, tensions grew between the crews. The Valaxians continued to treat the humans as lesser beings, clearly gathering intelligence for their planned conquest. Major Blackwell, following Martinez's orders, organized a series of friendly competitions between the 2 crews, games and contests that seemed designed to showcase Valaxian superiority. The humans deliberately performed poorly in strength contests, allowing the Valaxians to win easily. This reinforced their belief that humans were weak and would be easily conquered. "They're becoming more confident," Blackwell reported after a weightlifting contest where she had pretended to struggle with weights the Valaxians handled easily. "They think we're no threat at all." "Perfect," Martinez said. "And our friends back home?" "All preparations are ready, Captain," Murphy confirmed. "Secretary General Castro himself will be greeting the delegation." As the ship approached Earth, Murphy gave a presentation to the Valaxians about human physiology, carefully emphasizing what they already believed, that humans had evolved with thin skin, visible blood vessels, and less dense bone structure than the Valaxians. However, he added, showing diagrams of human muscle structure, we have adapted to our environment in ways that work for us. Clearly, Commander Krath said, not bothering to hide his contempt. Though it's remarkable you've survived as a species at all. The night before they reached Earth orbit, Martinez gathered her senior staff for final instructions. Remember, we need to maintain the illusion until they're planet-side, she said. The USS Horizon's artificial gravity will gradually increase to match Earth's as we approach, but the Valaxians need to think that's normal ship operation, not preparation. What if they notice the difference? Hayes asked. Lieutenant Murphy has added a slight fluctuation to the gravity controls. If they mention anything, we'll blame it on system calibration. As they approached Earth orbit, the Valaxians began to show signs of discomfort. Their movements became slightly slower, their breathing more labored. Murphy noticed Commander Krath, pressing his hand against the wall for support at one point. Is everything all right, Commander? Murphy asked innocently. Your ship's systems seem poorly maintained. Krath growled. There's a strange pressure effect. Oh, that's just the gravity calibration adjusting as we approach Earth's field, Murphy explained. Nothing to worry about. The Valaxian warriors exchanged concerned glances, but their pride prevented them from admitting any weakness. Commander Krath straightened his posture and pretended nothing was wrong. Earth Control, this is USS Horizon requesting landing clearance at New Geneva Spaceport, Communications Officer Wells announced. USS Horizon, this is Earth Control. You are cleared for Landing Pad 3. Secretary General Castro and the welcome delegation await your arrival. As the ship began its descent, Martinez watched the Valaxians struggle to maintain their composure. She almost felt sorry for them. Almost. Commander Krath, we'll be landing shortly, she said. Earth's atmosphere has been verified as safe for your physiology, so you won't need environmental suits. However, we should warn you that you may experience some adjustment period. We are Valaxian warriors, Krath said proudly. We adapt to all environments. Murphy caught Martinez's eye and they shared a brief, knowing look. The Valaxians had no idea what awaited them. In a few minutes, they would step out onto Earth and feel the full force of its gravity for the first time. Their entire worldview, their belief in their own superiority, was about to come crashing down around them. And Earth was ready. The USS Horizon touched down at New Geneva Spaceport with a gentle bump. Through the viewports, the Valaxians could see a large group of humans waiting on the landing pad. Many wore formal clothing, and at the front stood a distinguished older man that Captain Martinez identified as Secretary General Alan Castro, the head of Earth's unified government. Commander Krath, are you and your delegation ready? Martinez asked, watching the Valaxian's face closely. Krath was breathing heavily and sweat beaded on his bronze forehead. The other Valaxian warriors looked equally uncomfortable, shifting, their weight as if their bodies had suddenly become too heavy to carry easily, which Murphy thought with hidden satisfaction was exactly what had happened. We are ready, Krath said firmly, though his voice sounded strained. Lead on, Captain. Murphy activated his comm unit and sent a quick message. They're feeling it already. This should be interesting. The ship's ramp lowered slowly, and Earth's natural gravity flooded in. The Valaxians visibly stiffened. One of the warriors made a strangled sound in the back of his throat. Remember, Martinez said softly to her crew, act natural. This is normal for us. The human delegation walked down the ramp first, their movements easy and fluid. Years of living under Earth's pull made the transition from ship to planet completely unremarkable for them. They reached the bottom and turned, waiting for their guests. Commander Krath took the first step onto the ramp and almost fell forward. His massive body, evolved for a world with only 70% of Earth's gravity, suddenly weighed nearly half again what he was used to. Every muscle strained, his joints protested. His lungs worked harder to expand against the new pressure. With visible effort, he forced himself to keep moving, each step a battle against a force he had never imagined. Behind him, his warriors fared worse. 2 of them had to grab the railing to remain upright. Another took 3 steps and then sank to one knee, breathing in harsh gasps. At the bottom of the ramp, Secretary General Castro smiled warmly. "Commander Krath, welcome to Earth. We're honored by your visit." The elderly statesman stood perfectly straight, his movements relaxed and natural as he extended his hand in greeting. Krath stared at the human in disbelief. Castro was at least 70 Earth years old, yet he stood comfortably in what felt to the Valaxian like crushing pressure. With enormous effort, Krath reached out and clasped the human's hand. "The honor is ours," he managed to say, fighting to keep his voice steady. Murphy watched as realization dawned in the commander's eyes. The humans weren't weak. They had evolved under this oppressive gravity. Their thinner frames, their less bulky muscles, these weren't signs of frailty. They were adaptations to a high-gravity environment that would crush most other species. "We've prepared a welcoming ceremony," Castro continued cheerfully, seemingly oblivious to the Valaxian's distress. "I believe you'll find it most illuminating." The welcoming ceremony turned out to be a military display that made even Murphy wince in sympathy for the aliens. Human soldiers in standard uniform, deliberately not wearing any powered exoskeletons or strength-enhancing gear, performed a series of drills. They marched in perfect formation, ran at full speed across the field, performed acrobatic combat maneuvers, and most devastatingly, demonstrated weightlifting. A young female soldier, no taller than Murphy's shoulder, casually lifted a weight that Murphy calculated would be impossible for even the strongest Valaxian to budge under Earth gravity. Throughout the display, the Valaxian delegation stood in rigid silence. 2 more warriors had collapsed shortly after leaving the ship and were taken to the medical facility. The remaining 3 and Commander Krath were clearly suffering but too proud to admit it. "Impressive display," Krath said through clenched teeth when the demonstration ended. "Your warriors are well trained." "Oh, those aren't our warriors," Secretary Castro said with a gentle smile. "Those are just regular security personnel. Standard physical conditioning, nothing special." Murphy saw the shock register on Krath's face before the commander could hide it. If these were just average humans, what would their elite soldiers be capable of? The delegation was escorted to a conference room that had been specially prepared, though not in the way the Valaxians might have hoped. While appearing completely normal to human eyes, every chair, table, and fixture was solid, non-lightweight material. No concessions had been made for the higher gravity. As they all sat down, Major Blackwell deliberately dropped her datapad. It hit the table with a loud thunk. Without hesitation, she reached out and picked it up with 2 fingers, a casual movement that required considerable strength under Earth's gravity. Commander Krath watched this with narrowed eyes. He tried to reach for his own device and found his arm surprisingly heavy, the movement requiring conscious effort. Perhaps now would be a good time for Lieutenant Murphy to provide some scientific context, Martinez suggested. Murphy stood up, smoothly, and activated the room's display system. "Commander Krath, you're currently experiencing what we call normal Earth gravity, approximately 9.8 meters per second squared. Based on our measurements, Valix Prime operates at approximately 6.9 meters per second squared. That difference may seem small mathematically," he continued, "but the physical effects are substantial. Your body mass effectively weighs about 42% more here than it does on your homeworld." "Impossible," one of the remaining Valaxian warriors muttered. "No intelligent species could evolve under such conditions." "And yet here we are," Murphy replied gently. "Humans evolved under this gravity. Our muscles, bones, and cardiovascular systems developed specifically to function optimally in this environment. What you're experiencing as crushing pressure, we experience as normal." Commander Krath was silent for a long moment. Then he asked, "And when you visited our world?" "We experienced your gravity as approximately 70% of what we're used to," Martinez confirmed. "That's why we moved so easily there, despite our supposedly frail appearance." Understanding dawned fully on Krath's face now. The humans weren't weak. They were incredibly strong. Their cardiovascular systems, their muscles, their very bones had developed under pressures that would cripple a Valaxian. Even the oldest and smallest human could move normally in conditions that strained Valaxian warriors to their limits. I must contact my government, Krath said slowly. There appears to have been a significant miscalculation in our assessment of your species. Of course, Secretary Castro said graciously. We've prepared communication facilities for you, and perhaps after you've had some rest, we could continue our cultural exchange. We're particularly interested in discussing the concept of client species and how that might not apply to Earth. The look that passed between Castro and Krath made it clear that both understood what was really being said. The Valaxian conquest had just hit an unexpected and immovable obstacle, Earth's gravity and the humans who had mastered it. Commander Krath spent 3 hours in communication with the Valaxian High Command. When he emerged from the secure room, his bronze face looked noticeably paler. 2 more of his warriors had been taken to the medical facility with stress fractures in their leg bones. Only Krath and 1 warrior named Vrax remained standing, and even they moved with painful slowness. We would like to accept your offer of medical assistance, Krath said to Martinez, his voice tight with suppressed pain. It seems our physiology is not compatible with your environment. Of course, Martinez replied. We've prepared gravity-adjusted quarters at our lunar base. Dr. Patricia Long is our foremost expert on xenophysiology. She can help your warriors recover. An Earth shuttle transported the Valaxian delegation to the moon base, where the gravity was about 1/6 of Earth's. Even this was slightly higher than they were used to, but it was manageable. Medical teams worked to treat the injuries the Valaxians had suffered from their brief exposure to Earth gravity. 3 days later, Captain Martinez and Lieutenant Murphy visited the moon base. They found Commander Krath in the observation lounge, staring at the blue-white sphere of Earth through the large viewport. How are your warriors doing? Martinez asked as she took a seat across from him. They will recover, Krath said. Though Zenk may never regain full function in his left leg, the bone breaks were severe. I'm sorry to hear that, Murphy said, and he genuinely meant it. The point had been to demonstrate human strength, not to cause permanent injury. Krath turned from the viewport. For 1,000 years, the Valaxian alliance has expanded through the stars. We encountered many species, most of them easy to impress with our superior strength and technology. We believed ourselves to be the pinnacle of evolution. He gestured toward Earth. And then we found you. Evolution doesn't have a pinnacle, Murphy said gently. Just different adaptations to different environments. Humans evolved on a high-gravity world with atmospheric oxygen levels that support our metabolism. If we visited a world with even higher gravity than Earth, we might be the ones struggling to stand. Perhaps, Krath conceded, but the fact remains that your species possesses physical capabilities that far exceed ours under standard Earth conditions. The High Command has reconsidered its position regarding Earth. I'm glad to hear that, Martinez said. We have no desire for conflict. Nor do we wish to find ourselves on the losing side of one, Krath replied bluntly. My report to High Command was thorough. If you had visited our world with conquest in mind, you could have easily overpowered us. In the medical wing, Major Blackwell was speaking with the Valaxian warriors. Despite their initial hostility, a grudging respect had developed between them. So the whole time on our world, you were holding back? Asked Vrax, the only warrior, who had remained standing on Earth. We were following orders, Blackwell said with a small smile. Captain Martinez thought it best if you discovered the truth firsthand. A clever strategy, Vrax admitted. We completely underestimated you. In another part of the base, Diplomat Hayes met with a delegation of Valaxian scientists who had arrived to study human physiology. Among them was Kren, the scientist who had spoken privately with Murphy on Valax Prime. Your Lieutenant Murphy was right, Kren said excitedly. High-gravity adaptation has given humans remarkable physical resilience. Your bone density, muscle fiber arrangement, cardiovascular system, all evolved for conditions we would consider extreme. And your low-gravity adaptations have allowed your species to build incredible structures that would collapse under Earth. Gravity, Hayes replied diplomatically. Each of our species has unique strengths. 1 week later, Secretary General Castro arrived at the moon base for formal talks with Commander Krath. The Valaxian High Command had sent new orders, completely reversing their previous position on Earth. The Valaxian Alliance wishes to propose a treaty of mutual cooperation, Krath announced in the conference room, not as dominant and client species, but as equals. Earth is pleased to hear this, Castro replied. We believe all intelligent species have something valuable to contribute. The negotiations continued for days. The Valaxians, humbled by their experience, approached the talks with newfound respect. The humans, aware of their physical advantage but also conscious of the Valaxians' more advanced technology in some areas, sought a balanced agreement. Lieutenant Murphy worked closely with the Valaxian scientists to develop gravity adjustment protocols. They created special suits that could counteract Earth's gravitational pull, allowing Valaxians to visit the planet safely for short periods. Meanwhile, Major Blackwell organized joint training exercises in the moon's reduced gravity. Human and Valaxian soldiers worked together, each learning from the other's strengths and techniques. You move differently than we do, Blackwell explained to Vrax during one session. You use your whole body in a fluid motion. We could learn from that. And we could learn from your explosive power, Vrax replied. Even here, you can generate force we struggle to match. 2 months after the Valaxians' first disastrous visit to Earth, a formal alliance was signed. The ceremony took place on a space station with adjustable gravity, set to a compromise between Earth and Valax norms. Commander Krath and Secretary General Castro signed the document together. This marks a new chapter for both our peoples, Castro said. Together, we can achieve more than either could alone. Indeed, Krath agreed. And perhaps we Valaxians have learned a valuable lesson about judging others by our own standards. As the ceremony concluded, Murphy found himself standing next to Kren, the Valaxian scientist. I've been thinking about something, Murphy said. If humans evolved such strength because of Earth's gravity, and your species evolved your particular traits because of Valax's conditions, then what other species might be out there? Kren finished his thought. Adapted to even more extreme environments? Exactly, Murphy said. The galaxy must be full of species with abilities we can hardly imagine. Some possibly even more formidable than humans, Kren added with a nervous flick of his eyes. Later that evening, Captain Martinez found Murphy on the observation deck, staring at the stars. Credit for your thoughts, Lieutenant? She asked. I was just thinking about what's out there, Murphy replied. The Valaxians thought they were the strongest species in the galaxy until they met us. What if we're not the strongest either? Martinez nodded thoughtfully. All the more reason to build alliances rather than empires. The galaxy is too big and too diverse for any one species to claim superiority. As they looked out at the countless stars, both human and Valaxian ships moved through space around them, already beginning joint operations. The initial misconception that humans were frail had led to a greater understanding between their peoples. Now they faced the future together, knowing that in the vast universe, there was room for all kinds of strength.